In today's video, come with me to look around a building with a most unexpected history. I've spent 4 years researching this place and I'm so happy to be able to share what I found with you. Hello, welcome to Through Lucy's Lens, weekly videos where I go somewhere interesting and hopefully you will think it's interesting too. This week I am really close to home. This week's video means a lot to me and it's something that I've been doing a lot of research for nearly 4 years now, and it involves my own little Edwardian lockup. I'm self-employed, I do various bits and pieces, and this is where I spend most of my time, in this little Edwardian lockup on the end of a very imposing building here in Northfield in Birmingham. And I have, since I moved into this building, I became obsessed with what it was, what has it been, and I just always had a feeling there was more to it than meets the eye. And I'm glad to tell you I'm right, so come with me and let's talk about it. When I found this building many years ago, I was instantly attracted to it, particularly the big, unusual building at the end of the row. I just had a feeling that something interesting went on here, from the unusual architecture to the size, to the location, to the train station. I just felt as if it was more than just the sort of building you'd walk past and not take any notice of. The building was built in about 1901 by a Charles P. Graham. He was a local business person that built not only this building, but the row of houses on the way to the train station, also some shops, and this here, which was a slaughterhouse, and most interestingly, a roller rink that was just up the road but was sadly lost just after World War I, and I couldn't find any photo evidence of it. I heard a rumour that the building was used as a temperance hotel, and I was really fascinated about this. The temperance movement in the United Kingdom was a social movement that campaigned against the recreational use and sale of alcohol. It promoted total abstinence, so teetotalism, and in the 19th century, high levels of alcohol consumption and drunkenness were seen by social reformers as a danger to society. So temperance hotels were a place that you could stay for the night where there was no alcohol available. I went to local records and Facebook groups. The Facebook groups, there were little arguments. There was never a hotel there. And I just thought I really needed to find out if this was a temperance hotel, why it was built and what went on. Northfield in Birmingham, where this building is located, was a really rural area up until 1870 when the railway arrived. So it would have made sense to have a hotel here because of the close proximity to Northfield Train Station. The building is packed with absolutely beautiful features. And when the current tenants came across the building in about 2008, it had been used as bed-sitters, it was derelict, it was absolutely ramshackle, full of graffiti, there was no windows, and she has worked tirelessly to make sure this building is brought back up to a beautiful standard, because she and everyone else that works in this place just absolutely loves it because it's so unusual, and there's just something about this building that makes you fall in love with it. The building today is mixed use with a beautiful tattoo parlour taking up the majority of the building. There's also some residential flats, there's some offices, and there's also a big secret that we'll come up to later. The original entrance to the hotel would have been through the chip shop, but the original staircase remains that goes all the way from the ground floor to the 3rd floor with beautiful views over the surrounding road. The layout of the building is one central staircase with almost a fan-shaped group of rooms on each floor. Today on the ground floor there is a private flat, so I didn't have access to that, but that was used as the kitchens and serving area when this building was a hotel. We believe the main room on the ground floor would have been the dining room and entrance for guests to the hotel and where meetings would have taken place. You can also see the bedrooms with the individual doors, and you can go into and experience the size of what the bedrooms in the hotel would have been like. You can also see the original bathrooms with the original tilings, and we've worked out that these bathrooms would have been the shared bathrooms used in the Temperance Hotel. Right at the top of the building is a flat roof, and there's also a very small room that nobody can get into. Not even the current owners have managed to get into this room, so one day we will find out what's going on in there, but that's not for today. So through this door here is something really, really special about this building. And before I go in, I want to thank the people that look after it for letting me come in. There has been a billiards and snooker club here since 1901, hidden on top of this building. And I feel so privileged to be able to come in here today. From the research I've done, temperance hotels often had a billiards hall, and this one is still here all these years later. And in the local area, you hear so many rumours about this building, and absolutely none of them are true. It's a billiards hall hiding up here. And I've got some stories to tell about this billiards hall in a minute. See, I was just drawn to this building. As soon as I saw it, I knew there was more to it than just somewhere you walk past in the street. I'm not putting on any lights or moving anything because I'm just really thrilled that they've let me come in and film. But there's a bar here now. Obviously this was a temperance hotel, so bar wouldn't have been allowed originally. But like I say, I've got a story about that I found from the research. So isn't this just the most magical place, hidden in plain sight in this beautiful building? So who lived here then? So I used census information. Gotta love a good census, very useful. And in 1901, you can see very clearly that this building is being used as a hotel. In 1901, we have a manager and a manageress. We've also got cooks, servants, and 12 people that are staying here using it as a hotel. So we can see in 1901 that the building was indeed being used as a temperance hotel. Some of the guests at the time were hawkers, cashiers, shopkeepers, and also people that worked on the railway. So there was all sorts of people staying in the hotel. By 1911, I can see that it's no longer being used as a hotel anymore because the Pegram family live here. Charles Pegram, he built this building, and in 1911 he is living here with his 9 children were living in this building. So I can only presume that the hotel operated from about 1901 to 1909, which is when I found the last bit of evidence that this was still being used as a hotel. But by 1911, we can be pretty sure that it was then being used as a residential building. I then found out in about 1924, Charles Pegram was still a builder, and he patented a new style of working man's house. Does that remind you of anything? just like those bungalows up in the Austin Village. I couldn't find any evidence that this ever took off, but he was still here, but he was working as a builder. And by the time of his death in the 1940s, in 1941, he wasn't living here anymore. He was living in Rednall. I then found out that a family called the Coopers took over this building, and they had a grocery shop in what is now the chip shop, and they also owned the houses on Station Road and this building. And during that time, rents were collected. Some of the areas in this building were turned into bedsits. Some of the building was used for the Coopers to live in, and then there was also shops. There was a grocer's shop, a wet fish shop, a butcher's, and even a slaughterhouse around the back. So that is, in a nutshell, who was living here. After the 1940s, the records really start to slip off. But speaking to people on local Facebook groups, it was the Coopers that owned this for quite some time, and rents were collected. And it was just used as a general building. Some people lived here, there were shops. It was just at the heart of the community. P. Grant built the hotel, it was suggested, with the idea of obtaining a licence, but when it was rejected, bearing in mind we're really close to Cadbury here, so the Cadbury brothers would not have wanted alcohol consumed in this area. The application for alcohol had been unsuccessful, so he used the house as a temperance hotel. Over the room, used as a sort of restaurant, was a billiard room, and this is this room I'm sat in today. It appeared that this room was rented to a social club who used it from 6 till 11 each evening and from 2 to 11 on Saturdays. Billiards, bagatelle and cards were played by the members in this room, and liquors were brought in by the steward and drank by the members. In the room was a bar and a beer machine, the pipes being carried down into casks into the defendant's cellar. There was no notice up for a licence for either alcohol or playing billiards. Defence, after a discussion, decided that P. Graham was in the wrong, and he was fined £5 and costs of £2.12. The bench allowed P. Graham to pay the fine, and his solicitor made a plea, please can we have a licence for this club, and the bench turned it down. And I found records that this licence for alcohol in this building was applied for all the way up to 1909 when I found the last records. Now obviously it has the correct licence today, but I just found it was just really fascinating to think that this was happening up here. This little secret hidey hole billiards club where men would come in and having a drink, when it was actually supposed to be a temperance building where drinking was just not allowed. Because the building was used as a temperance hotel, it's also a place where inquests would be held, meetings would be held, local people could gather, and quite a few inquests have happened here for crimes, suicides, all sorts of things. So I'm going to go through what I found. So in 1903, a man was found drowned in the river just over there, and his body was brought here for the inquest, where a verdict of found drowned was returned. So that was my first clue that there might have been some kind of stuff happening here that might leave a little bit of an atmosphere in the building. If you don't believe in that, that's fine, I do. So that was a man that was brought here after being found drowned in the river next door. In November 1901, I found evidence of a fire, a farm fire, because this area was quite rural. Until the railway came, it was countryside around here. And when the railway came in 1870, that's when it started to become more of a built-up area. But a lot of the people that lived around here would have been farm labourers working on the land. A man called George Tomey, who is 80 years of age, was working as an odd job man at the farm, and he was sleeping in the loft because he couldn't find anywhere to live in the village. So he was pretty much sleeping there as a vagrant. And there was a fire, and sadly, this man was burnt to death in that fire. And because this was the most local place for the body to be brought, his body was brought here for the inquest. So that's 2 poor souls that came here on their demise, but there's more. I found an article from 1905 where a young lady had checked into the hotel and she tried to commit suicide. She was working as a servant down the road in Alvechurch, and for whatever reason she must have been very unhappy. And the article states that she checked into the hotel, this very building, and she drank salts of lemon. In the morning she woke up and called a police officer and said, "I've tried to kill myself, I will do it. I've taken these salts, I've tried to do it before." And there's even record of a letter that she'd left when she tried to drown herself. So she must have been so unhappy as a servant in that house in Alvechurch. And what happened to her really shocked me. Thankfully, she didn't manage to take her own life, but for attempting to take her own life in what must have been a really difficult time, she was arrested and taken to the Birmingham Girls' Shelter. So she was given 2 choices. She could either go to prison or she could go to a special home for girls. And sadly, I've not been able to find any more information about this Edith May Dwyer. So I don't know if she if she stayed alive and had a happy life, maybe she got a better, a job in a more happy household, but she falls off the records, which is really sad. But that happened here. A young lady checked into the hotel, was very unhappy and attempted to take her own life. Again in 1905, and this is the 14th of November 1905, 2 ladies were killed right near the Temperance Hotel by a falling tree. That's bad luck. They were driving a pony and cart. They were local ladies, and a tree fell on their cart, killing them both. And I think the saddest thing about this, they were 2 young women, and it describes how. So it goes on to say that whether it was the branches or the main trunk, the force must have been terrific, judging by the results. The trap was crushed and flattened, and the lady's features were injured beyond recognition, with the brains on the road. Oh. The ladies were brought to the Temperance Hotel, where their brother arrived in the evening. So that's 2 more people that were brought here under horrible circumstances, and the bodies for these ladies remained here until the inquest. I don't know where. We don't know where in this building that would have happened. It's been so changed over the years, but I'm probably this room, or maybe there was a similar room of the similar size downstairs. I found another. It's just mind-blowing, the things that I found. This is the last one I found, and it's from the 13th of April 1907, and it is another suicide that took place in this building. On Saturday morning, about 7 o'clock, a Harry Wildsmith that was employed at the Longbridge Motor Works was lodging here. He was found dead in bed, his throat cut by a razor. The deceased was about 48 years of age, and at the time of his rash act was lodging at the Temperance Hotel in Northfield. The inquest upon the body of the deceased was held at the Temperance Hotel, and a verdict of suicide while temporarily insane was returned. Just like that. And that also happened here. And finally, I found an incident in May 1906, and I think this one's really, really sad, because for me, it's clear that this man was having a horrible time. William Edward Randall, who was 34, he lived on Station Road, the other row of houses that were built with the Temperance Hotel. And his partner states that they'd been living together for some time. He used to work at the Austin, he'd lost his job, and he'd been feeling depressed. On the Saturday morning, he went out and bought some beer, and she went out to mind a neighbour's baby. When she came home, she found him hanging from the kitchen door. And that morning, she'd also had to pay off bailiffs to stop them being evicted from the house. Now, to me, that man must have been in a terrible state of mind, thinking all is lost. He couldn't think of anything else to do. But the jury actually returned an open verdict because they said there's no evidence to show the state of his mind at that time. So he was just claimed to be in death by suicide, which at this time was actually illegal, to take your own life. And I just think that's really sad, because that's the story of a real person from this locality, and probably reflects the stories of many, many people in the same circumstances. And his body was also brought here to the Temperance Hotel for the inquest. So quite a lot of people have been through this building, dead and alive. And I just think it's like truly fascinating that we walk past places all the time and we never know what's happening behind those closed doors, or what has happened in the past. So I don't think it's surprising really that some of the people that are here, particularly if you're here on your own, it does feel a bit heavy sometimes in this building. And who'd have thought that all these sad things happened here? Now, unfortunately, and it is just the way research goes, I haven't actually been able to find any information about anything, happy taking place here. No Jubilee celebrations or anything like that. However, it's been lived in. It's been lived in. It's a real place, and I'm really glad that I took the time to do the research, because if this building ever goes, if it's ever turned into flats or anything like that, this will be here as a record of what's happening or what happened in a building that is completely, you'd walk past it and you wouldn't even think about it. But something always drew me to this building, and I just had a feeling there was more to it, just from the shape and the architecture. And there we have it. It was built as a hotel. It had to become a temperance hotel because they weren't granted a license. There were inquests here. There were suicides here. Maybe some of them were murders. I don't know. No, I'm not going to make rash decisions like that. But stuff happened here, and stuff is still happening here. And the people that use this building today, myself included, are so happy. We love it. So there we have it. The story of a building that you'd walk past and you'd not think about, that has so many interesting tales inside. Feels a bit funny really, because I've been working on this for so long and there's so little information really, but I think it's fascinating and I hope you do too. As always, thank you so much for watching. It means the absolute world. I read every single one of your comments. I am truly inspired by what I've been doing and by you. So thank you. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, give it a share. And if you would like to, I would love it if you would subscribe. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you on the next one.